How many times have you felt something was off, like someone was pulling strings behind the curtain, but you couldn't prove it? You brushed it off, gave them the benefit of the doubt, and told yourself not to overthink. But deep down you knew you were being used, played, controlled. And the worst part, you let it happen because you didn't want to seem paranoid or dramatic. That's how manipulation works. It hides in plain sight, cloaked in charms, smiles, and half-truths. It drains your energy, distorts your sense of reality, and leaves you doubting your own mind. But here's the truth no one tells you. You're already in a war. You just haven't been trained for it. This world doesn't reward kindness when it's blind. It punishes those who walk through life without armor. Manipulators don't announce themselves. They study your weaknesses. They watch how much you give. They listen to how much you explain yourself. They test how far you'll bend before you break. They operate in the shadows because that's where control thrives. And every time you ignore the tension in your gut, every time you silence your instincts to keep the peace, you hand over a piece of your power. Not because you're weak, but because you haven't been taught the rules of this game. It's not your fault. Most people aren't raised to detect deception. You were told to be polite, to trust, to stay soft-hearted. But while you were learning to stay kind, others were learning how to take advantage. They studied emotional leverage. They mastered guilt. They knew exactly how to make you question yourself while keeping their hands clean. And now you're left asking, how do I stop this? How do I protect myself without becoming someone I'm not? The answer starts with awareness. You cannot win a battle you don't know you're fighting. You need to see the structure behind the smile, the motive behind the compliment, the agenda behind the apology. You need to sharpen your perception until nothing slips past you. Not manipulation, not deceit, not guilt-drenched persuasion. This isn't about becoming bitter or cynical. It's about becoming untouchable, unshakable, impossible to manipulate. And here's your emotional reward. Once you understand how manipulation works, you become immune to it. You stop dancing for approval. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve your time. You stop shrinking to make others feel comfortable. Instead, you stand grounded, calm, and unreadable. That's when everything changes. Your energy returns. Your clarity sharpens. You stop being a puppet and start becoming the master of your own life. Stay with this. Don't pull away from the discomfort, because the truth you're about to uncover will give you something most people never have: freedom from control. Emotional independence, a mind no one else can twist. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, confused, or ashamed, this is your moment to break the cycle forever. What comes next will rewire how you see the world and how the world responds to you. Manipulators don't look for strength, they look for softness. Not kindness, not compassion, but softness, the kind that hesitates to draw lines, the kind that fears confrontation, the kind that would rather absorb pain than risk making someone else uncomfortable. And this is where they win, because your empathy becomes their playground. They push your limits, then watch how easily you forgive. They cross lines, then blame your reaction. And because you care, because you want peace, you rationalize their behavior while questioning your own. That's how you're captured. Not by force, but by your own goodness turned against you. This is the paradox no one prepares you for. The more you try to be fair, the more the unfair see opportunity. The more you give, the more the takers circle back. They don't respect your kindness, they exploit it. Not because you're wrong to care, but because you haven't yet realized this. Care without boundaries is currency for manipulators. You become valuable not for who you are, but for what you tolerate. And the more you tolerate, the more invisible you become to yourself. You were never meant to be used as someone else's emotional cushion. You were never meant to bend until you broke just to keep someone from walking away. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's quiet servitude disguised as connection. And it ends the moment you decide it ends. The moment you stop asking for permission to take up space. The moment you realize that real strength isn't loud or aggressive. It's the silent refusal to be controlled. You have to stop trying to be liked by everyone. Because the desire to be liked is the gateway drug to manipulation. When you crave approval, you'll compromise just to keep the peace. When you fear rejection, you'll silence your voice to avoid conflict. Manipulators smell that fear like blood in the water. They don't need to overpower you. They just need you to keep saying yes when your soul screams no. The shift begins when you stop justifying your limits. You don't need to explain why you said no. You don't need to defend your silence. You don't owe anyone a breakdown of your emotional logic. This is your life, your time, Rio's time, your energy, and you don't have to sacrifice it on the altar of politeness. Every time you choose discomfort over self-betrayal, you take back control. Every time you draw a boundary and let the chips fall where they may, you rise. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed. Because the truth is, you're no longer available for emotional exploitation. And that's terrifying to those who once fed on your silence. You're not heartless, you're no longer harvestable. That's the difference. You've woken up to the game and now you play by your own rules. This is where manipulation dies, where your clarity becomes louder than their tactics, and your inner strength becomes something no one can touch. Manipulators aren't as complex as they want you to believe. Their power doesn't come from brilliance, it comes from your blindness. Once you learn to see the pattern, their illusion collapses. Every manipulator follows the same blueprint. They start by disarming you. They charm, flatter, or mirror your values. They build a fast connection. Too fast. They create a sense of urgency, of specialness, of being chosen. And once you're hooked, they begin to twist the screws. Not with force, but with confusion. What was once closeness becomes control. What felt like love turns into leverage. And by the time you notice, they've already rewritten your rules. They don't steal your power all at once. They take it in inches. A small request here, a guilt trip there, a passive-aggressive comment disguised as a joke. Every word is a test. Every reaction is a data point. They're not connecting, they're calculating, learning your triggers, tracking your insecurities, mapping your boundaries so they can slowly dismantle them. And the moment you allow it once, they gain ground. This is not a random process. It's a strategy. And the only reason it works is because you've been taught to judge intentions instead of outcomes. Stop asking whether they meant to hurt you. Start asking why they keep doing it. Intentions don't excuse patterns. If someone repeatedly disrespects your limits, they're not confused. They're consistent. And if you keep letting it slide, you're not being kind, you're being complicit. Not because you lack strength, but because you haven't yet stepped fully into it. Your silence becomes their signal. Your hesitation becomes their opening. They don't overpower you. They wait for you to surrender. You have to reclaim your ability to recognize emotional patterns. Manipulators rely on your desire to believe the best. But belief without discernment is a liability. You can be loving and still observe. You can be open and still protected. The moment you stop explaining away red flags is the moment you begin to see clearly. That's where your real power lives, in perception sharpened by pain, in clarity earned through chaos. You don't become cynical, you become wise, and wisdom doesn't react. It recognizes, it responds with precision. Start watching how people behave, not how they speak. Words are easy, behavior is truth. Anyone can apologize. Few change, anyone can flatter. Few respect, anyone can show up when it benefits them. Few stay when you stop performing. Get off. Your job is not to fix or rescue. Your job is to observe, evaluate, and choose with strength. Because when you finally see through the mask, you take away their weapon, your unguarded trust. What used to confuse you now exposes them. The charm, the guilt, the sudden coldness, it all becomes obvious. They're not deep. They're desperate. They're not powerful. They're predictable. And once you've seen the blueprint, you're no longer the target. You become the mirror they can't stand to face. And in that mirror, they see the end of their game. When you stop reacting, everything changes. Manipulators don't feed on truth. They feed on your reaction to their lies. They bait you to feel, to chase, to explain, to prove. The more you react, the more control they gain. They push buttons not to understand you, but to predict you. They don't care how you feel. They care how your feelings make you move. This is why emotional control is not optional. It's the foundation of freedom. If they can control your emotional state, they don't need chains. They already own you. This is why detachment is dangerous to them. When you stop flinching at their tone, when you stop jumping at their demands, when your face gives them nothing, their power slips. Because now they're playing chess with a mirror. Every move reflects back. Every attempt to trigger you lands in silence. They hate it not because you're cold, but because they can't reach you anymore. Your calm becomes your weapon. Your stillness becomes their frustration. And in that space, something powerful happens. You take back your mind. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for things that don't serve you. You stop throwing your energy into fixing others while you're breaking inside. You stop trying to make sense of nonsense, to decode mixed signals, to justify abuse wrapped in soft words. You stop dancing for clarity and start demanding alignment. Your peace becomes non-negotiable. And when peace is your standard, chaos no longer feels like home. You don't owe emotional access to anyone. Just because someone has a story doesn't mean they get a pass to wreck yours. Just because they cry doesn't mean they're sorry. Just because they hurt doesn't mean they'll heal. Compassion does not mean consent. You can care and still walk away. You can forgive and still refuse to return. Emotional detachment gives you that power, the ability to witness without absorbing, to understand without accepting, to feel without folding. There is strength in silence, in the pause before you speak, in the choice not to react, in the power to walk away without looking back. That's not weakness. It's mastery. Anyone can yell, anyone can beg, anyone can break down. But it takes real discipline to stay centered, to remain grounded while someone else tries to shake the floor beneath you. That's where power lives, not in control over others, but in unshakable command of yourself. And once you master that, you become untouchable. Their games stop working, their pressure turns into noise. You no longer break under their storms, you watch them pass. The same people who once manipulated your emotions now struggle to find a handle. You've become ungrippable. That is the essence of control, not dominance over others, but full possession of your reactions, your thoughts, your energy. You are no longer a puppet to predators. You are the calm in the chaos, the storm they can't provoke, the end of their influence. There comes a point where you must decide, do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? Because the two are rarely the same, manipulators count on your need to be liked. They study your hunger for harmony, your discomfort with rejection, your quiet hope that if you're nice enough, patient enough, selfless enough, everything will be okay. But nothing changes until you change, until your desire for self-respect becomes louder than your fear of conflict. Until your inner authority speaks louder than their disapproval, until your standards burn brighter than your need to be accepted. Respect is not given to the agreeable. It's given to the unmovable, the ones who don't flinch when others disapprove, the ones who can say no without guilt, the ones who refuse to sacrifice their integrity for temporary peace. Respect is born in boundaries. It is grown in silence. It is built not through force, but through the quiet, unwavering presence of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they will no longer allow. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to justify your boundaries to be valid. The moment you start honoring your own standards, people are forced to rise or leave. And either outcome serves you. Because anyone who needs you to shrink to feel powerful was never in your corner to begin with. Their version of love is rooted in control. Their version of loyalty is built on your silence. And the day you stop playing along, the truth shows itself. Not everyone around you was there for you. Some were just there for your compliance. Let them fall away. Let them call you difficult, arrogant, distant. That's the sound of your awakening disrupting their illusion. That's the echo of your power unsettling those who only knew how to manipulate your absence of it. You are not here to be convenient. You are not here to be emotionally available to people who drain you. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be whole, to be sovereign, to be unbreakable by games disguised as connection. Every time you choose your truth over their tactics, you win. Every time you walk away instead of explaining your worth, you rise. Every time you hold the line, even when your heart trembles, you step deeper into your power. And with every act of self-respect, your world recalibrates. The manipulators fall silent, the noise fades, and all that remains is clarity, the clear, grounded strength of someone who has finally remembered who they are. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You've stopped bending, you've stopped chasing, you've stopped asking for permission. You are no longer the easy target. You are the immovable force, the calm fire, the end of manipulation and the beginning of real earned respect. The moment you stop negotiating your worth is the moment people start adjusting their behavior or exposing their true nature. Manipulators don't hate strength because it's cruel. They hate it because it forces them to confront their own weakness. They rely on your confusion. They thrive in your hesitation. But when you become clear, consistent, and unbothered, you strip them of leverage. They can no longer use guilt as a leash. They can no longer twist your empathy into a cage. You become untouchable, not because you're distant, but because you're finally rooted. Rooted people don't chase approval. They don't explain their standards to people who continually violate them. They don't beg for loyalty or settle for half-hearted love. They don't mistake tension for connection. They know what peace feels like, and they refuse to entertain anything less. This is not about becoming cold. It's about choosing warmth that isn't weaponized. It's about choosing clarity over chaos and solitude over forced loyalty. You must understand that real power is not found in controlling others, but in no longer needing to be controlled. When you own your presence, manipulators lose theirs. They depend on you doubting yourself. They count on you second-guessing your instincts. Your instincts were never wrong. You just silenced them to keep the peace. You betrayed your knowing for the illusion of harmony. Now that you've stopped doing that, everything begins to shift. Your inner voice no longer whispers. It commands. It no longer waits. It leads. And it stops you from going back to what almost broke you. You must be willing to disappoint people who expect you to shrink. You must be willing to break cycles by standing tall where you used to fold. You are not heartless for not giving more. You are not difficult for refusing to be manipulated one more time. You are reclaiming your time, your energy, your freedom, and that will always offend those who felt entitled to them. Let them be offended. Let them walk. Let silence replace arguments. Let space replace people who drain you. Let your peace be louder than their pressure. Because every time you honor your boundaries, you raise your value, not just in their eyes, but in your own. You begin to see yourself as someone worth protecting, worth prioritizing, worth respecting. And once you see yourself that way, no one can ever convince you otherwise to you. You were never meant to be someone's emotional sponge. You were meant to be a force, unshaken, clear, unavailable to chaos dressed as connection. You don't need to defend your growth. You don't need to justify your peace. You don't need to apologize for evolving. The game of manipulation ends the moment you choose truth over tolerance. From that moment forward, you're no longer part of their strategy. You've become the standard, the line they can no longer cross, the boundary they can't manipulate, the power they never expected to lose. There is no greater shift than the one where you finally stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and start asking, "Why am I still allowing it?" That single question changes everything because it turns the spotlight inward, not for blame, but for power. Manipulators only win when you give them a seat at your table. When you tolerate their chaos, justify their patterns, and keep handing them access after they've shown you exactly who they are. But the truth is, you don't have to participate. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to stay available to those who only show up when it benefits them. The deeper your self-respect grows, the faster false loyalty fades. You start noticing how often you've been the one keeping connections alive, how often you've excused poor behavior in the name of love, loyalty, or history. You begin to feel the weight of the one-sided effort, and it hurts at first. But soon that pain transforms. It becomes clarity, then resolve, then freedom. Because the moment you stop showing up for people who won't meet you halfway, your energy returns to you. And with it comes power, quiet, undeniable, permanent. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to expose anyone. The strongest moves are made in silence. Let your absence speak. Let your new standards separate the real from the performative. Let your boundaries remove the people who were only there for the version of you that didn't know how to say no. This isn't cruelty. This is responsibility to yourself, your peace, your future. You are not abandoning people. You are abandoning the version of yourself that abandoned you for them. It's not about cutting people off. It's about cutting off access to your energy for those who misuse. It's about recognizing the difference between love and control, attention and intention, guilt and accountability. Manipulators often return once they sense you've changed. They will test the waters, push the buttons, recycle the old scripts. Don't engage. Don't explain. Don't regress. You're not obligated to entertain a past that nearly destroyed you. You're allowed to grow in peace. This new version of you doesn't seek closure. It creates it. creates it. And once your life is guided by principle instead of pressure, you cannot be moved by anything that doesn't align with your highest self. You've become untouchable, not because you're distant, but because you're finally whole. Power isn't loud. It's not desperate. They need you to forget your power, forget your standards, forget how many times you forgave what should have ended. But when your self-respect returns, their entire strategy collapses. Because now you remember.